Alright everybody, so we're done with World War One, and today we're going to be moving it into the 1920s. And 20s are going to be called the Roaring Twenties because they're more economically prosperous, and our culture is changing because we have a lot more money, because we're moving to the cities. The 1920s are going to be the first time when there's more people living in the cities than in the country in our nation, and it changes things a lot. So culture is going to thrive. Technology is going to change things. We're going to focus on the cultural aspects today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. If I can get this thing to work. We don't need to know about those really. All right. So the stock market, the big thing about us. Remember, I just mentioned that we're going to have a long period of economic prosperity starting in 21. So we have a little bit of a hiccup after World War One, but we start to pick up mainly because a lot of Europe is destroyed. We aren't. Our buildings are still in place. Our factories are still in place. Our men are actually mainly still alive. We've had 100,000 men die in the war, but that compared to Europe, that is significantly low. So economically, we're doing pretty good. We're not damaged by the war that much. We have a bull market. Bull market, if I can get in the frame. Bull market, up, horns up. Bear market is when the economy turns down, so you got the bear claws pointed down. So one of the things that defines the Roaring Twenties is this thing, Prohibition. Prohibition of alcohol. In the 19-teens, we're starting to see some social problems with alcohol, and there's going to be a religious vent to this. Women's Christian Temperance Organization is going to finally get the government to prohibit the sale of alcohol, and it's mainly for social reasons. We got car wrecks now, but also still going back to the domestic violence, and also if you're drinking too much, you're not able to hold down a job, so it's not only hurting you, but it's hurting your family who are depending on you for that income. 1920 is when the 18th Amendment goes in, but the year before that, 1919, the government is going to define as intoxicating substances having a 0.5% alcohol by volume. That is extremely low. So everything is going to be made illegal, hard liquor and also beer as well. So people are the law is going to go in and try to break up any illegal alcohol dispensing areas. So speakeasies. Speakeasies are going to be secret bars that are going to kind of hide that they are producing alcohol. Or not producing alcohol, selling the alcohol. So speakeasies, you go to the door of the speakeasy and you have a password that you have to speak easily to get in. You get in the door and everybody has their drinks at the tables and everybody's dancing, having a good time. They got the bar. A police officer comes down the street. They have a light. The guy at the door pushes the button, the light goes off. Everybody takes their drinks and throws them into this trap door beside the table. It smashes into the basement below, and all the liquor on the shelves kind of go flush against the wall, and all the alcohol falls into the basement, smashing down there. Cop comes in, everybody's got water, you can't do anything. Now, where are they getting this alcohol from? The best place to make illegal alcohol is going to be the Appalachian Mountains. It's close to the eastern cities. You have cool mountain water that's going to condense and help separate the alcohol from the water. You got a lot of tree cover so you can hide the stills, and you're close to corn and wheat and rye supplies that you need to make that alcohol. And getting it from place to place, you're going to have bootleggers and rum runners. Bootleggers, you get the big boot of the car, you put as much alcohol as you can, put big shocks on, or big springs on the car so that it doesn't look like it's carrying anything, and you try to get them to the cities. Rum runners are going to be essentially the same thing but ships, and these are those moonshine stills. Right. Not all alcohol is made illegal. You could still get a prescription because it was seen as medicinal, and one of the cool things is wine producers in California are going to be hit by this as well. So they change things and they start producing bricks of dried grapes. And they put a warning label saying, do not mix this with water, yeast, and sugar, or an alcoholic brew will result. So they basically gave you directions on how to make wine, um, which is the whole point of that warning label. They were trying to tell you how to make wine, but they couldn't sell wine. And the speakeasies we were just talking about, the people who had the organization, the wherewithal to run these are going to be the mob. Probably the best known mobster at the time is Al Capone, and he's going to be running these mainly in Chicago. St. Valentine's Day Massacre, a separate mob, is going to be essentially wiped out. Now, the problem with the mob running these speakeasies is, one, they are openly violating federal law. The other thing is that, and to control their distribution of the alcohol, they've got to run other mobs off. So, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they had machine guns, they had cars, they had drive-bys. This is starting to be a big, big problem. So the federal government is going to get FBI agents led by Elliot Ness to go after him. They're finally going to jail Capone, and that's his plush Pennsylvania one. He's eventually going to go to Alcatraz. They don't get him for murder or prohibition laws or anything like that. They get him for tax evasion. Finally, after this has run its course, Prohibition in and of itself accomplishes the goal that it meant to accomplish. As far as the social aspects of it, drinking did decrease during Prohibition. It just kind of went underground. It didn't eliminate it. The other thing was that it led to an unintended consequence of strengthening organized crime like Al Capone's mob. So 21st Amendment, in the middle of the Great Depression, we get rid of Prohibition, hopefully cutting into the power of the crime organizations, and also sparking employment, trying to get those breweries back up and running. Mass media is going to be big as well, so we got advertising and marketing, which is going to create a false kind of need for goods, and we'll come back to this when we start talking about the 1920s economy and stepping towards the Great Depression. Radios are going to be huge. Radios are going to distribute anything you want to distribute, as far as plays, news, concerts. So jazz music is going to be a big thing here soon, and radio is going to spread that from where it's developing in the Mississippi River area to New York, to California, all over the place. Plus sports. It's going to distribute sports. So the New York Yankees are going to have fans in all parts of the United States now. They can hear the games. We'll talk about the fireside chats later when we get to the 1930s. So we got jazz music. Ragtime music is going to kind of blend into jazz music. Jazz music is going to be known as a fundamental American art form, one of the very few musical art forms that is primarily American. It's delineated by horns, so you're going to hear a lot of horns in jazz music. It's going to be upbeat, it's going to be dancing music, it's not the blues, it's definitely not the blues. And also call and response coming from African American spirituals in the Civil War. So one person will say one line and another person or the chorus will say another thing. And the other thing, there's a fourth one, scat singing. So scat singing is so you're saying sounds, but they don't mean anything. They're just kind of keeping a beat. Again, jazz music, you look at the amount of horns in the background, the trumpets, the tubas. Louis Armstrong is going to be the most well-known jazz musician of the time period. Other ones are going to be Cap Calloway, Duke Ellington, but he's the best well-known one. He's known for his trumpet playing, and his singing voice is very raspy. You don't need necessarily know Gershwin. Charleston's going to be a very famous dance at the time. It's not a ballroom dance. It's upbeat jazz music dance with limbs and arms and legs flying all over the place. In the theater, you're starting to get comedy troupes like the Marx Brothers, who are also going to make that segue into Hollywood, into movies. And the silent film era. This is big. This is the golden age of silent films. The big thing about silent films is how you actually say something. They're going to have captions, right? And they're also going to have music played behind it. A lot of these are going to be comedies. And probably the king of silent movie comedy is Charlie Chaplin. He's an English guy, but he's known for his slapstick comedy. So think about it. If it's a silent movie and you're trying to convey comedy, What's the best way to do that? You get hit by something. That's funny. Right? So that's what's going to happen to him. A lot of this is going to be him running into boards. Think of the Three Stooges. Think about Donald Duck and the cartoons and everything. That's silent movie comedy. Just getting hit with something, pie in the face, right? Because that's really the best way to convey things. Lang's Metropolis is well known because of, this is the first sci-fi movie. If you take a look at the background, that is not New York City. That is something that they're creating a world for people. We're starting to see talkies as well. Talkies is when we're going to have synced voice on top of your picture. First one is going to be Al Jolson's jazz singer. It's known because it's blackface. So Al Jolson's a Jewish guy who's going to be pretending like he wants to be this jazz singer, but jazz musicians are all black, so he paints himself black to become a jazz musician. Now, that's one thing. Blackface is definitely a art form that is looked down upon now because of its racist overtones. But the big thing about the jazz singer isn't necessarily the use of blackface, but to be a jazz singer, you have to sing. So there's going to be a part. This movie starts off as a silent movie, and then it goes to a screen that says, "And you haven't heard anything yet." And then, bam, talking, singing. Whoa, that's big for the 1920s. All right. Literature. I'm not going to spend too much time on literature, but the biggest thing about the literature is you're going to have the Lost Generation, Sinclair Lewis. You're going to have F. Scott Fitzgerald. All these guys are coming back from World War I, and they see American morality shrinking away. We're drinking too much, we're partying too much, we're not necessarily got those values that we had before. And for somebody coming back from World War I, this is problematic. So they're very critical of American life. Ernest Hemingway is going to be in there as well. Scott Fitzgerald, Great Gatsby, probably the most well-known literature from the 1920s. The riches and the glamour and everything is just kind of an illusion. Art Deco is the art form for the 1920s. Bright colors. Everything has a hard line to it. Everything is very geometric, and you can see that in the construction of everyday objects become art pieces. Excuse me. So alarm clocks and lamps. The buildings. If you take a look at the Chrysler Building, it's probably one of the most famous versions of Art Deco architecture. Beautiful building, a lot of geometric shapes. It's not like so you wouldn't see this eagle is a little bit more rounded than should be if it was a realistic interpretation of an eagle. But that's not what Art Deco is. Art Deco is about kind of getting geometric shapes to mimic what you want it to mimic. Just again, geometric shapes with the wood cuttings in the ceiling, all of these things. Daily News Building. Changing role of the women, we're going to save, we got to split this up. I haven't been able to get through them all. So we're going to take a look at the flappers, we're going to take a look at baseball, and we're going to take a look at religious developments in part 2.